Lights, camera, intel briefing. NBC News has exclusive new reporting that Tulsi Gabbard, the nation's highest-ranking intelligence official, is considering a major overhaul of President Trump's daily briefing to make it more like his preferred way of consuming information. And that includes creating a version that looks like a Fox News show. NBC's Courtney Cubie has that exclusive new reporting. Lieutenant General Mark Hertling is back. Courtney, I think in his second term, Trump has gotten these daily briefings far less often than his predecessors, but even less than during his first term. What more can you tell us about all this?
Yeah, that's right, Chris. So we looked back at his public schedule, and in the first several months of his presidency, that is from his inauguration until the end of May, which of course was last week, President Trump received, according to his public schedule, 14 presidential daily briefings. Now, for perspective, during his first term in office, only several years ago, he received 55 briefings in that same period of time. And according to some of his other predecessors, including President Joe Biden, received 90 in that same period of time. Now, officials we spoke with said that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is very aware of the fact that President Trump simply is not taking the PDB as often as he did in the past and his predecessors have. As part of that and as part of her job, she is trying to look at ways to recast the PDB, essentially to make the president want to take it more, to make it more of a form that the way that he likes to consume information. Presidents, according to the officials we spoke with, have taken it differently in every different term. For instance, President Obama liked to read his PDB while he was on the treadmill. President George W. Bush liked to read it in front of some of his officials so he could ask questions in real time. As part of these discussions, Tulsi Gabbard has reached out to current and former officials. One of the ideas that has come up, Chris, has been to make it into essentially a newscast, to make it look more like the sort of information that the president likes to consume, that is Fox News. Now, at this point, there is no decision made to actually do that, but that is one of the discussion, or one of the ideas that is under discussion, Chris.
General, I wonder what you make of the lack of frequency, apparently, of what this president does in terms of getting his presidential daily brief, and why it's so important. I mean, we hear about the presidential daily brief, but a lot of people may not know why it's given such a high priority by most presidents.
Well, most of government is based on intelligence and information flow, Chris. And it's interesting to me. I find this, a potential for an Intel and Friends kind of broadcast to be very fascinating. And as Courtney said, the intelligence officials do guide their briefings based on what their principal wants to have and how they want to do it. But this is really kind of, I hate to use this expression, but dumbing it down quite a bit. When I was a commander, as all senior leaders in the military and in government get, I used to get a black book every morning, and it used to really set my pace for the day to see what was going on in my relatively small area of operation, which was Europe. What you're talking about now is giving the president an intelligence briefing, not only on a global environment, but also that affect all of his different cabinet officials, like healthcare or treasury or commerce or in military. So you're talking about something that comes into the president that certainly has to be compact in its nature, but it can't be simplistic. And I think that's what Tulsi Gabbard is attempting.
So Senator Elon Musk is sharing his opinions on the Trump administration in a new interview that aired over the weekend. The billionaire and Tesla CEO spoke with CBS Sunday Morning and at first said he wanted to keep the subject on spaceships, but then he began to talk about his time at the White House, sharing that he does not always agree with everything the Trump administration does.
Wondering what your thought is on the ban on foreign students, the proposal. I mean, you were one of those kids, right?
Yeah, I think we want to stick to, the subject of the day, which is like spaceships, as opposed to, presidential policy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was told anything's good, but...
No. It's not like I agree with everything the administration does. So it's like I agree with much of what the administration does, but we have differences of opinion. The things that I don't entirely agree with. But it's difficult for me to bring that up in an interview because then it creates a bone of contention. So then I'm a little stuck in a bind where I'm like, well, I don't want to, speak out against the administration, but I don't want to. I also don't want to take responsibility for everything the administration is doing.
So
Look, he says he's in a bind.
Yeah.
The American people are in a bind because of what Musk did. His Doge, which didn't do as much as he wanted it to do, but still did huge amounts of damage in terms of the firing of employees, the decimation of agencies like healthcare, like going after making sure drugs and food is safe, nuclear energy is safe, the FAA. We need to bolster, and I believe they put a freeze on it. They didn't hire new people. Over and over again, what Musk did with his Doge is going to cause lasting damage to the American people. And just saying now he's out of the administration and he's in a bind, that's ridiculous. He ought to be apologizing to the American people for what he has done if, for some reason, he sees the light. I don't know if he does or not, but that's what we need, an apology, and him to tell Trump to undo the damage that he has done.
Senate minority.
Democrats that I talk to, they feel like so much of it's baked in with Donald Trump, right? Like when you talk to voters, apparently they're not surprised that he's trying to make money off the presidency. They're not surprised by that dinner. They're not surprised by the more than $300 million his family seems to be making off of this cryptocurrency. Vaughn, one of the things that was fascinating about the first term was that bad headlines did seem to move him. He's got a lot of people said a lot of bad things. Sometimes Donald Trump changed course just a little bit. That's not the same anymore. He doesn't care.
There's no consequences to the bad headlines when you look at it. He lived through the worst headlines, really, of any president of the last century. When he was indicted 4 different times, he was found guilty. I mean, he was literally had allegations of having sex with another woman. Well, for the whole country to hear, and yet there's no shame because millions of Americans voted him back into office here. And so on the same thing on the financial front, right? Back in 2017, we were having conversations about emoluments and whether the president was going to be divesting and the extent to which his sons were going to be operating, separately from him. Those conversations are so far gone now that this is just a matter of how can he capitalize here in the presidency in the immediacy. He's got 4 years to do it. And if he is able to convince the country that his policies are benefiting them and that this really is the corruption is just hearsay and really not that important, then, well, he could have a J.D. Vance or a Don Jr. go back into the White House come 2029. And essentially that sort of business operation can continue.
Well, which is why I think we should just go back to the used plane that Jonathan loves so much.
Jonathan likes to remind us that it's a used plane.
Last week there was reporting that the plane was a done deal, and I kind of compared it to when I see like a shirt or a dress in a store and I like rip the tags off and wear it out of the store. Like he was bringing that plane home. He was taking it. But then now there's reporting that the plane isn't a done deal. So, Peter, what are you hearing about the plane?
Yeah. Qatar understandably wants some legal assurances here, right? I think they want to follow certain rules, even if everybody else doesn't. They want assurances that when the plane basically is transferred to a presidential library, I think this is what's really behind it, they're not held responsible for that. Because, in fact, it is a gift if he has it brought not just from the Air Force that he can use for official functions, but later on in his private life after he leaves office, it becomes available to him. That's a very different thing. And Qatar seems nervous about the legalities there, and they're trying to figure out how to word them.
There's a lot of irony there. A lot of irony there. But
no, go ahead. Finish
I was just going to say nothing matters, though, right? Like the podcaster you reported on that just got appointed, you're reporting said some really bad things.
Paul Ingrassia, I think this is somebody who is going to be overseeing the Office of the Special Counsel. This is the person who's supposed to be in charge of prosecutorial powers. It's an independent agency over the Hatch Act. This is somebody who I saw frequently out on the campaign trail. He was also a frequent presence at Mar-a-Lago in 2023, 2024. But basically somebody that I perceived to be so fringe, an ally of John Eastman, right, and Michael Flynn, that had a hard time ever seeing him actually being put into an administration position. And that's exactly what the president is seeking to do. He is somebody that has called for a national holiday for January 6th. He has called for $1 million in reparations for January 6 defendants. He's called for the jailing of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He's called Mike Pence an FBI asset. He's advised Andrew Tate. That is somebody who is going into this independent agency that is supposed to be effectively a watchdog within the executive branch.
I think the watchdog thing is the important part, too, by the way. Right. Why no outrage? Because, in fact, the mechanisms of accountability have been systematically dismantled, right? He's put in very partisan people at offices like the Office of Special Counsel, fired the professionals who were there before, fired the inspectors general, fired FBI agents and prosecutors at the Justice Department who were part of prosecutions against him or January 6 defendants. The lesson is very clear. You're not going to investigate things that are going wrong if they are at the White House.
One of the things that I've talked to some folks in the White House about is that, you know, he's feeling besieged more than usual as all of this happens, especially after the plane. But when he gets his back up against the wall, he does tend to lash out and react in kind of a really surprising ways. And without those guardrails that we have, what do you anticipate how he reacts to some of this stuff as we move forward?
You don't want to be at Harvard right now.
Right. I mean, correct.
He picks his favorite targets. Yeah. Right? Every time he is under pressure, every time the tariff thing isn't going well, right, then we stir up some other conflict. And the conflict is good for him politically as he sees it. Harvard is a convenient target. His base doesn't love Harvard. They're happy to see him take on, you know, the big liberal shibboleths of the elites. Exactly.
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Trump's cabinet, whether we're talking about the official cabinet people, whether we're talking about, you know, Senate level appointments that in effect are cabinet people, whether we're talking about Elon, who was in effect Trump's vice president for months and months and months, even though he never had an official like cabinet appointment. He was in cabinet meetings at least some of the time fighting with people. These are always disasters, and it's going to get worse because Trump's running out of people to appoint, right? He's running out. One of the reasons why we have a Hegseth this time is, yes, it's Trump ego, all of that. But it's like, I'm sure that maybe there were more qualified people that he liked, but maybe they didn't want to do it. Maybe, right? And also Trump realized from his first term, to a degree, that he did have some qualified people around him. He did. They weren't necessarily people I would appoint because, like, ideologically, I disagree with them. Like, they wouldn't be people Biden picked, but they were objectively qualified in some cases. Not everyone was Jared and Ivanka, you know, Nepo babies, right? There were qualified people, but those were often the people that stood up to Trump because they knew what they were doing, and they also had confidence in their own abilities. They knew that they were there not as Trump lackeys, but because they were qualified conservatives, right? You did see that. This time that those people aren't there. And so even when there isn't fighting between Trump and his cabinet or between members of the cabinet against each other fighting under Trump, the way that they stop the fighting is by acting insane. Like Tulsi, like, I mean, I get it. She's doing what would work with Trump, but it's insane. All of this. We saw it with Kirsty Noem. She wants to do a reality TV show. And Tulsi Gabbard wants to, in effect, run her cabinet presentations, her work with Trump, as if it's a show. Like she's doing a one-woman Fox show. Like she's going to dress up like a Fox anchor and she's going to, you know, look like the women on Fox News and she's going to have the screens behind her. It's insane, and yet I believe it 100%. This is a disaster, not only internally, but for the American people, that these are the people running the country.